To start out, I'd like to thank the Prairie Family Business Association for asking EOS to present again at your conference this year. And mostly, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to be your presenter for this year. But I got to admit, I was a little nervous, or I am a little nervous in presenting, because I'm following the footsteps of Sarah Stern last year and Mike Payton the year before. And I am sure that they provided you with some great nuggets and tips that many of you are probably using today. Knowing that you learned so much from them, I was struggling, what else could I possibly share with you that would have an impact on your family business? Then I realized and remembered what got me to where I am today. And I think there's something in there that, or at least I'm hopeful that that's going to help you. So giving you a little bit of my history to kind of set the stage here, I started working in a family manufacturing business when I basically got out of college. It was a typical story. I worked my way up throughout the business and eventually had the opportunity to lead the entire company. It was my introduction to two pivotal systems that got me to where I am today: Lean and the entrepreneurial operating system. The family business was ultimately sold to a private equity investor in 1999, and we were told at the time it would be business as usual. And actually it was. For the next 6 years, it ran pretty much the same as if it were owned by the family. The family is still involved. But then it was when we were sold to our second private equity partner. That's when our world got tipped upside down. We underwent massive change, and Lean was that catalyst for those changes. And I actually never really even understood the term Lean. I had heard it before, but I never really understood what it meant. And so I went back to my MBA textbooks and I looked up and I thought, went to the glossary, found Lean, and I found this paragraph, just one simple short paragraph. And it defined Lean as saying is a method to identify waste and to develop processes to remove them. It went on to explain that Lean's origins actually started with Henry Ford. They're further refined by W. Edwards Deming, and ultimately they were embraced and popularized by the Toyota Motor Company in Japan following World War II. So this intrigued me. I read every book that I could get my hands on. I picked the brains of a lot of the consultants that we were using, and I became a true Lean believer. This stuff worked. It made such perfect sense. And hey, if it worked at Toyota Motor Company, it's got to work at Truck Bodies and Equipment International. We radically transformed our business by reducing waste, increasing the throughput, and really utilizing the same staff. But over time, we would always seem to slip back. And I found myself frustrated. I found myself spending more and more time at the plant, firefighting, trying to keep everything running, trying to hold those results that we got when we had some of those events. Well, now moving to the entrepreneurial operating system, I was introduced to it in 2012. I had belonged to a CEO peer council, and as many of you who may be able to relate, who are in those types of peer groups, we'd meet monthly and we would come and commiserate and talk about our challenges, the employees, customers, whatever they might be. Following one of those pivotal meetings, Jerry, who was a friend and a member of the council, he mailed me the book Traction. He sent it to me, he had a note in there, and he said, you know what, everything you're talking about, I think this might be your answer. Well, anyway, I read the book and I realized this was it. This is what we needed. I was instantly sold. I bought copies for our leadership team and we started implementing it into our company. And I started to see that this was the answer to sustaining those Lean improvements that were challenging us so many times. So finishing the story here, in 2015, finishing my story, in 2015, we sold the business to a third private equity business. And I realized this was the perfect time for me to get off of that merry-go-round and really pursue my lifelong passion of helping other entrepreneurial leaders and leadership teams. And now I had two proven systems that I could share with them, Lean and EOS. I wasn't really sure which way I would go until I went to Detroit. I met Gino Wickman, Mike Payton, and all of the other EOS implementers that were at that meeting. And I realized this is where I belong. That was my calling, was to implement EOS. And then Since then, I have conducted over 400 full-day sessions, and I'm just doing what I absolutely love, and that is helping entrepreneurial business owners get everything they want from their business. And so that brings me to today. Today, for the first time, I am going to share with you how I believe, and I think hopefully you'll believe it too after I present this, how the entrepreneurial operating system can crack that code on the lean struggles that I had and lean struggles that maybe many of you have in sustaining them. And this is that answer. So that's where we're going to go today. And I'm going to start with, we got to make two assumptions. And so those two assumptions are in the poll that you all took. Thank you, by the way, for inputting your information and answering those questions. The two assumptions are, number one, is that you are familiar with EOS. And so what you're going to hear today is assuming that you are familiar with the entrepreneurial operating system. You've either heard of it or you're using it, implementing it. Either one's good. So from the poll, 75% of you said that was the case, 25% didn't. Now, for the other 25% that are still there, hopefully you still stay in the room. But if you have other questions, I'm going to go through the EOS piece a little faster than maybe what would be your liking. But what I do want to offer to you is please contact me and we'll fill in the blanks. Just jot down any of the questions that you have and we're going to get you caught up, but it'll be after the session today. The second assumption is that you have a basic understanding of lean. And from the poll that you took, again, 60% of you said you did. For the 40% that didn't, not a problem. I'm going to give you, if I already haven't given you that definition, that's going to help you so you can understand what that's all about. So this presentation's designed for those two groups of people. Those are the assumptions, but for everybody else, I think you'll be okay. And you just might have some follow-up questions. Again, jot those down. We'll come back to those. So here's our agenda. Here's what we got here for the remainder of the morning. Number one, I want to review the common frustrations that are out there and make sure that these are in sync with you. I think you're all going to agree that these are probably frustrations that you sense, at least some of them. Number two, we're going to dive in very quickly on what lean continuous improvement is, further define that so everybody understands where that's coming from. And then we're going to dive into EOS. We're going to find the traction. How do we get those lean results? How do we get more of those results and keep those sustained? And then, of course, at the end, we need to make sure we do get the results that you're looking for, that you can see that path. So that's what we have. And so with that, we're going to start with the common frustrations. So the 5 common frustrations that we see when entrepreneurial businesses, the first one is control. This is where you, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you had that control of your organization at some point, and at some point it just started to get a little bit far reach. It got beyond your fingertips. You couldn't touch and be involved with everything anymore. You just weren't clear on some of those messages that were being conveyed, or you weren't necessarily agreeing with them, and you just lost some of that control. The second frustration that we find, and these aren't in any particular order, is profit. And what we're talking about here is that the return on investment, all the energy, all the effort, all the blood, sweat, and tears that you're putting into your business, you're just not getting the return. I used to say that you would think that you could get a better return from the bank, but since banks don't give a return anymore, this is where you're looking at and thinking, you know what, I could put this in a 401k or into the stock market and do better and get a better, easier return than what I'm having to invest. The third common frustration is people. And sometimes people can make that argument, this one should be at the top of the list this day and age, but it's just, you're frustrated with people, the people that you have, the people you're looking for, the people that are there, the people that are wanting to leave, vendors, whatever those customers, all those people issues out there, those are frustrations. And then the fourth is hitting the ceiling, where you were just cruising along, everything was going pretty good, and then bam, you hit that wall, you hit that ceiling, and you couldn't get around it as easy as you did maybe the last time. And these don't always have to be bad things. This might be that time you got that great customer that you've been looking for, and now all of a sudden you have all that demand for your product, and you're struggling to get it out the door. And so if those 4 frustrations resonate with you, a lot of us went to looking for ways to solve those. Some of those 4, maybe there's other ones. But what we'd end up doing is that we would implement and we would search for those magic pills. And sometimes that magic pill was lean. It was utilizing what you heard other people or you read about, and you brought lean into your organization and said, this is going to do it. This is going to help me get that control, help me increase the profits, people. It's going to help me get through that ceiling that I'm struggling with. And so that's the 5th frustration, because we put it into our system and it doesn't sustain. And that, of course, is a huge frustration. And that's where we start to really question what could possibly work. So those are the 5 common frustrations. As I mentioned, lean becomes one of those answers for many organizations. And just to kind of come back and to define lean, to make sure everybody sees it, it can be wrapped up in really 2 words. It's removing waste. That's what we're talking. Leaning the systems out that you have, reducing the waste, making them be more efficient. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about lean. And so when you do go down that lean journey, the typical lean process kind of looks like this. You identify the need. Pretty straightforward. So something, maybe you got that business that you need more throughput. Maybe it's you're going after profitability or whatever it might be. We have a need. We need to be more profit. We need to get more product out. We need to have higher quality. Whatever that need is, it gets identified. Once we've identified the need, now we need to engage a resource. Now, if you're a larger company, you might have that resource on staff, and that is great, because we need somebody who's going to take charge of this event and somebody who's going to lead this process. Many times you're going to go outside, you're going to hire a consultant, somebody who's going to come in and be that resource for you. Either way, we need to make sure that we have that resource engaged. And then from there, now we need to train our employees, because this isn't just something that is natural and they can pick up, but we need to give them that quick overview education of what is needed, and we need to train them to that. And so those are the typical first 3 steps that we need to do. When those are in place, now we're ready to go to the actual event. And this is what's called a Kaizen event, commonly, or different terms can be used there, but this is where we have that lean Kaizen event and we execute it. It might be a 2-day event, it might be a 3-day, it might be an entire week. Whatever that is, we are going to conduct that event in the area that we're going to focus on. And if we did all of our work right, and we had a consultant or a resource that was worth their salt, they're going to come out with the improvements that we expected. And we're going to have those initial improvements. They are going to do their work, and that should be a natural outcome that we should all expect. And you're going to get that. Well, what happens is that 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, somewhere down the way, we start to fade back and we revert to our previous state. And the majority of improvement initiatives just simply don't sustain long-term. And now that's what my experience was. People that I would talk to, that was their experience. Maybe that was yours, maybe it wasn't, but I think in the majority of the people who have done lean start to see some of that erode over time. And so really the question is why? Why does that happen? And that's where this answer started to come to me. And that comes back to traction. It's having the discipline and the accountability to make sure that all those things that we did in that event are going to be here and that they're going to last forever. Now, taking you back a little bit on lean, before we wrap that up, as I mentioned, Toyota really popularized it, but it was being used in General Electric. Ford Motor Company was using it. Danaher, lots of great companies were using lean and having great success. And it makes sense because they had the resources that could keep everyone focused on it and to make sure that those results were going to be sustained and driven. In entrepreneurial companies, many of your companies, from what you responded in the survey, you don't have that size. You don't have all those resources to make sure that those event results sustain. But this is where EOS comes in. This is why EOS is here, is to give you that traction, to deliver the discipline and the accountability to make sure we get everything that we want from our business. And so that's what those 6 key components are all about. And so what I want to share with you today, this is cracking that code. I want to show you how each of these 6 come back and are influenced in what we're talking about, and that these will be the way that you can get those results, no matter how large your company is. You can conduct those types of events and you will get those sustained results. And it all starts with vision. We started at the top here, and that's that key component that we need to make sure is in place, where everybody knows where the organization's going and how you're going to get there. And how we do that, of course, is we answer the 8 questions. And those 8 questions are all contained in the Vision Traction Organizer, or VTO for short. And so when you answer those questions, what I want to start to show you, you're starting to make the case for where this lean tool could be implemented. You might have a 10-year target that is going to, in order for you to get there, this is going to be a critical way for you that's going to help you get there. If you have a 10-year target to double, triple, quadruple your size 10 years from now, how are you going to do that? Well, there's some lean. This is where lean can come in to get you that additional throughput, reduce some of that waste, to get you more output that you're looking for to move you on that path to your 10-year target. The other opportunities you might see is where it's coming down to profit. That's that profit. It's just not enough of it. We got to get there. In order for us to do the great things we need to do, we need to increase our profit. We need to have more profit in the organization to reinvest, to do those things. And here again, by reducing waste on leaning out processes, that seems like that's a good fit for lean. The measurables. So again, whatever that is on our 3-year picture, where we need to be, how are we going to get there? That can be another opportunity. Or we just might have some things that maybe our quality isn't up where it needs to be, and we need to fix that. Again, that's screaming out lean as a possible solution to help us get there. We also have different opportunities that might be there. Maybe you are anticipating this great big new customer that's going to have this increased demand, and you have 2 options. You can add onto your facility, add more staff, add more equipment, or you can just improve the flow and lean out some of your processes to get the same output in. And so that might be an opportunity. Taking it to the traction side of the page of the VTO, we have the revenue. So how are we going to increase revenue? That lean could be there, profit measurable, just like we talked about. Maybe you have those goals that are coming out. Okay, we got this big, hairy, audacious goal that we have, for the year maybe. How are we going to accomplish that? Well, lean, again, could be your answer. Similarly, when we're talking about the 90-day objectives that we have, or else we have those issues. So these are those other things that are important to us. Maybe those are some of those on that 3-year picture. How are we going to get there? It's not for this quarter, but those might be future events that we need to look at. And so my point is that the VTO is talking to us, is speaking to us, is showing us where we need to go. If we go to the traditional type lean process, the way that those usually would look at it, and I want you to know, I am not saying this isn't a good thing to do. I think it's a great thing to do, but admittedly, this is the thing that usually holds people back. If any of you are familiar or have done value stream mapping, I think you know what I mean. It's a heavy project. It's a very intensive project to put this together. This might be, some of you might have cringes when you see something like this and you think of all the effort that goes into that. Again, I'm not saying this is bad. I think this is top notch. This is great stuff. But for an entrepreneurial business, you don't have the time and energy to do this kind of stuff. But the VTO already did it for you. It pointed out where those opportunities, where those needs are. We don't need the value stream map to show us. Keep in mind, for a lot of those larger corporations, they're involving all kinds of people into that event from different areas of the company. They don't know those areas. This is their way to communicate and show and point out where the opportunities are. In your business, you guys are all plugged in, much closer, much tighter So those are pretty self-evident where the needs are. So we can avoid that, because what I find sometimes is that's a stumbling block. People don't start a lean initiative because they know how much energy it just takes, and none of us have the time to devote to that. So that's the vision key component. That kind of points out and shows us where we need to look and where our opportunities are in the business. Well, now flipping over to the people key component. And of course, we need to have right people in our organization. That's a given. So there's nothing new or unique there. But when it comes to making sure those right people are in the right seats, this is where we need to make sure that we're very explicit. What are our expectations, and make sure that we do truly have right people in those right seats. And so this goes back to that accountability chart. And so when that accountability chart is being produced, and let's just say we're creating the role or the function for the operations leader, we need somebody who can, of course, lead, manage, and hold other people accountable. But this might be where we start to feather in some of those needs. So we need somebody who's focused on efficiency, improving efficiency year over year, always bettering ourselves, focus on continuous improvement. Of course, in charge of production and all scheduling. So those are the primary key functions. When we make sure we add in those needs like that, now when we evaluate our people and we look at each person, and do they truly get it, all of those 5 things? Do they want to do all 5 of those things? If we got a leader there that just wants to maintain, keep doing what they did last year, probably not your kind of leader when you're looking for the lean type continual improvement environment. And then capacity. Do they have the training, the knowledge, all the things that they need? Or is that something that we can provide and get them? When we find that person that we can have those 3 checks for, now we can put that name in there. Who is that? We got our right person. We're ready to roll. We've now, through the vision, through the VTO, we know where our opportunities are. We have the right people on board who are motivated and have the capacity to do those things. That sends us over to the data key component. And this is probably where a lot of this starts to really kick in. So you all, most of you, 75% of you know the value of a scorecard. You all see that, and you use that at your leadership team level, and it's telling you that big story for the organization. And when you have those events and things, and when those things are starting to fall off, you don't always see that instantly on that leadership team scorecard. And that's the power of the next level. So when we start to move that down and get measurables for everybody in the organization, starting with each of those departments, we create the departmental scorecard. This is the great power of moving EOS into the organization, because let them solve the issues, because that's where it resides. As a leadership team, you don't have all the answers up there. Those are down with the people on the floor when it comes to some of that work that you did in those earlier lean events. So we have our measurables, and here's just a couple of quick ones that might be common that you can relate to for a department. If this was the production area or operations, units produced, efficiency, right on down the line. Next, we got to establish what are those goals. Well, those goals, probably some of those are a result of that event. So we had that event, that was a big block, and then we had those initial improvements. Well, once we've proven we can do it, that needs to be our goal from that point forward. Then and every day forward, we should be achieving whatever that is. And so if we're looking at the units produced, and we need to be greater than 500, we have our event, proved it, we got it, we took the waste out, we can produce 500 units, we're ready to go. We should have that every single week. And then of course, we need to know who's accountable, who's responsible for that. And then this is where we start to report on a weekly basis. And so if we look at this scorecard, if it were December 23rd, we see we have an issue. We have 2 red items. We have units produced as under the goal and efficiency. We got to go after those. The scorecard just instantly told us where our issues are, shows us what we need to focus on. That's what's going to take us to the 4th and critical key component, the issues key component. And so great companies are just very good at solving issues, and even great companies or even better companies are good at having their right department people solving those issues. And this is where we got to move that down throughout. And so we get it on the list. That's what the scorecard helped us do. It pointed out where our needs are. The VTO maybe pointed out some needs. If we have people that aren't sitting in the right seats right now, those are needs. Anyway, we get those needs are addressed. They're on our list. That's great. And then we have the tool to solve all of our issues. That's IDS. And so I want to take you back to the corporate lean look in a lot of those organizations. And some of you might have shivers who have worked in these organizations, or maybe you're using some of these. And again, I am not knocking this stuff. I think it's rock solid. It's great, but I think it's overkill sometimes. And so you have the 8D problem solving. So you got these 8 steps that you're going to take to solve all your problems. Or you can use the Ishikawa fishbone diagram. Great tools, and sometimes they work together, so you do both. But you're going to use this to make sure that you get your solution, get to that root cause, so that you can ultimately solve it. Well, as those of you who are using and are familiar with EOS, you don't need that. Not everybody needs that. It's okay if you have the resources to go that deep, but really we can do this all using IDS. So we have our issues list, as we talked about, and if you remember, if you remember what we saw previously, we missed our weekly metric and our efficiency. Those are 2 that we're going to come back to. And so what we need to do here, instead of having that detailed root cause analysis, we're going to do it just high level. We're going to do it fast. And we're going to use IDS to identify what that root cause is. List that issue statement, and then make sure that we're getting all of the facts out. When we get all the facts out, now we're ready for somebody to take that stab. What do they think? What's their gut tell them? What's the highest probability of what might be the most probable root cause? We get that out. Now the team is just going to we're going to go around, use discussion, make sure everyone's in agreement, everyone's voice is heard. Maybe somebody has a good point that we hadn't thought of. But at that point, now we've gotten what we think is the most probable root cause. Now looking at that root cause and that root cause only, we're ready to solve, listing all the possible solutions, even the crazy ones. And then we're going to come back and we're going to find a way, a rock, a to-do. Maybe it goes to the ETO of issues list, but some way, somehow we're going to get all those solved that we think are viable. And so that's our system. Like I said, we're going to go to that scorecard. That drops it into the issues list. We got it. We missed our weekly output. We have the efficiency on there. Well, that's a big one. We better solve for that. And then we have a Kaizen rock that's off track. So we got 3 main issues that we're going to start with. Let's go to number 1. We're then going to come back. We're going to identify. We're going to discuss. We're going to solve. And we're going to come up with that answer. So we had 489 units. We're supposed to have 500. Okay, what's our issue? Our issues, we're off track for where we should be according to our goal. What are the facts? Well, the facts are we had a Kaizen event 6 weeks ago. The facts are that this is the second week that we've missed our number. The facts are we're going to list all of those out there. And maybe in there we find out one of the facts is that Jimmy never got trained. We're on to it. Now we got to the root cause. What's the root cause? It isn't that lean didn't work. It's that we didn't do what we were supposed to. We have a new employee in that area that never got trained. No wonder we're not hitting our output. So now that turns into the solve, becomes very, very easy. It's a to-do. We're going to train Jimmy this next week. When he gets properly trained, we're probably back up to 500. If we're not, we're going to dive in. We're going to find the next most probable, and we'll just keep going. And so once we have that, we solved it. We go to number 2, we solve it, we go to number 3. And so that's the power. We're starting to really get into what those needs are and get those things fixed when we get into those, into that IDSing in that part of the meeting. So then that flips us over to process. And really when I looked at this, I thought this is the main one, right? When we're changing our processes and we're leaning things out, those are always changing. And yeah, that's true. But what I realized, it took me a little bit to see this, is that even at the leadership team level, we are implementing some of those lean practices. And we're doing that when we document the core processes. And so again, those of you familiar with that, what that takes is that you're going to document your process at a high level. So if we look at the operations, here's what we got. We're going to do these 5 steps and we're going to have the sub bullets underneath there. That's good. So the process owner is going to capture all this. That's helpful. But the next step of that is to simplify and to review. that process owner brings us back to the leadership team so that we're all on the same page. This is our company. We're all familiar enough with how things are done. We probably can provide some input on that. And this is where people are going to say, hey, wait a minute. I thought we quit doing that. Why are we doing that? And you're going to start to pull things out and you're going to remove them and you're going to maybe add some things, but you're going to lean these things out. And so even at the leadership team, you're implementing some of those great lean practices by documenting and then simplifying and reviewing all of your core processes at the highest level. And so you do that all the way throughout the organization. So that you do have that best and right way, but then we go deeper. So this is when we have those events and we start to change some of those processes. What we got to make sure is that all of our people are always following those. How do we know that Jimmy got trained? We got to make sure that he got trained on that. And so we have the followed by all checklist. Real simple. Number one, we got to train everybody. So when we can say that we've done that, maybe that's a to-do, maybe it's a rock, one way or another, we're going to get everybody trained. We need to measure. Well, comes back to our scorecard. We need to update our scorecard for those events, the results that we have, making sure that we have all of those captured, because that's what we're going to do from this point forward. We need to LMA, which really means that we're holding ourselves, our people accountable. We're IDSing it. We're helping people solve in that level 10 meeting. And then we just have to be aware, we're going to have to update this stuff constantly, because today, 500 units is fine. We might land that big count that we've been after. And now we got to have 600 units a week. Okay. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have to lean things out. We're going to have to change our process to have more output. And so that's just a natural outcome. So that's a process key component. And then that's going to take us to the traction. And this is the one that makes it all happen, is having that discipline, having those rocks, and living in that 90-day world. We can't do it all, but 90 days at a time, chunk by chunk, rock by rock, we can get those things done. And so we have that rock for the quarter. We're going to initiate the event. We're going to we've identified our need right here, identify our resource. We're going to train our people. We're going to conduct the event. When that's done, check, we got that. And then of course we got the results. How do we make sure those results are being done? Well, that takes us to our meetings, takes us to our level 10 meetings. And again, we're not saying at the leadership team level, these are usually things that are happening under the water. You're not seeing them and you shouldn't see them. And so you see the power of the level 10 meeting and how effective it can be at the leadership team level. But really, when you get EOS really baked into your organization, it's that next level that's going to do all the fixing. Because when those things are off track, those are the people that need to solve that issue. And that comes into the departmental level 10 meetings, where we have those things that naturally are going to pull out our scorecard, as we've been talking about, right? So we have the results, and we got to have them every week. If we don't have them, they're dropping down. Rocks. So that's how we got the event established. That's going to come in there. If that's not on track, we got to drop that down. And then, of course, the big one is where we're going to IDS those specific issues. They are going to, at the department level, they're going to IDS everything that needs to be solved and get it right back on track so that you have those results forever. And so that is the EOS model, how that relates back to lean, and how having EOS involved will make sure you are always getting the results. And so taking you back to that very first slide, or one of those first slides, we have that typical event. We're identifying the need, we're engaging the resource, we're training our employees, we're having the event. Now, if we can just add in that discipline and accountability that we get with having EOS built into our organization, those results are going to be there and they're going to be sustained forever. And that is the code. That is how you will add that extra traction to EOS, to lean. When you put those two together, you put those chains on that EOS model, you're going to get everything that you want from that event and ultimately from your business. So with that, I went through everything fairly quickly, but again, assuming that you're moderately aware of lean and EOS, I think that should have been okay. but I also want to step back and make sure we have enough time for any questions. So with that, what questions do you have that I can answer and help with?
Great, thank you, Joe. Any virtual questions can come through the Q&A, and if there's any in the room, I can come around with a microphone to get that question answered. I don't have any virtual questions. Anyone in the room have a hot topic you'd like to ask Joe?
Hi, Joe. My name is Rich Abel. I'm just kind of curious on timeframes. I mean, if you're just starting out, what are realistic timeframes on starting that traction program? Some benchmarks.
Yeah, so really what we say, for a company to be fully implemented, have EOS fully implemented, the journey is typically about a 2-year span. Now, some companies go faster, some go a little bit slower, but that's to have it fully operating where you're operating at 80% strong on all key components. Really, to get the impact, when you do start with EOS, you're going to have those the first 3 days, what we call focus day, vision building, day 1, day 2. Following that, you got it in your system, and that's like, just to put it in time frame, that's about a 60-day period of time, and it's there. It's clunky. It's not working great. And over that 2-year period is where you perfect it. That's when you push it down throughout the organization. So you're going to see results in 60 days. You're going to have it where you don't even have to think about those results. That's going to be in that 18-month, 2-year time period, would be kind of a rule of thumb. But again, it depends on the team. It depends on everyone's level of engagement and how focused everybody is in doing the work to get it in place.
Great, thank you. I do have a question that came in here. What are some tips for rolling out traction at the department level?
Yeah, so in that process, as I was explaining it, we're going to implement it first at the leadership team level. And so I would say the first thing is to make sure that the leaders, who are also the departmental leaders, that they have it under control, that they understand it, they're familiar with it, they're comfortable with it. Now, at that point, when they are to that level, that's the right time to start moving it down to the next level in the organization. And so it really depends on who is the leader of each of those, of the departments, because some companies are going to have 2, maybe even 3, maybe even 4 layers. And whoever's leading that, the level 10 meeting, who's ever in charge with the LMA in their responsibility, when they are comfortable with it, that's the right time to start moving it down. And usually what happens is that they're seeing that success at their immediate level, and they can't wait to start moving it down to the next level. So it's going to be more dependent on the individual, their competency and their familiarity. But as soon as they're ready, it's a good time to start moving it down. So that can start to happen on that 61st day after the leadership team's trained. And it could be another year before some of those people really have that comfort level before they do it. But it's really at their pace. We don't want to rush them, because they'll do more damage if they push it down too fast.
All right, we're going to try to get one last question in here before we cut off.
Yeah.
How do you commit to quarterlies when your work is in an industry that's built on being away from the office? We struggle when we're slammed and don't seem to commit to the meetings.
Yeah, and I think that's one where you just got to see that value. And if you're not seeing the value to say, I think there's more value for me to stay in the business versus to come out of the business and work on the business, I think that's more the introspection that you want to take. And what's happening, are those meetings, they're just not as powerful and they're not as effective. You're not accomplishing what you need to really do in those, because when you get those operating at that high level, that's a meeting that you're looking forward to. It's a meeting that you can't not do, because it's going to set everybody's agenda for the next 90 days. And so it's one of those things that really should grow into the organization. And you should get to that point. If people are pushing back, that's probably coming back to, are they really the right people? Are they in the right seats? If they're wanting to do the day-to-day stuff, are they really wanting to lead this company? Those are the hard questions you might have to ask.
All right, thank you. We'll need to wrap up here. Again, if you have additional questions for Joe, please reach out to him and he is happy to help.
Yeah. So what
Um,
I'll do, I'll just put my contact screen here, right here. Well, I guess just in final, I'll just hit this real fast. You always have three choices. You can live with it. You might have saw everything here and said, you know what, the pain's not that great. I'm okay. And that's fine. Someday that pain might get elevated. You can leave it and say, this isn't for me. And I'm not interested. Maybe it's time to sell your business, maybe leave your role that you're in. But of course, the third one that I'm hoping you all choose is to realize you can change this. You can change those, you can get the outcome. I'll leave you with a quote from one of my clients, and he's really advocating that, go for it. He wishes he would have done this 10 years earlier. And that's really the point. And I hope everything you saw, real simple results. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the time. And my last slide here is just my contact information. If there's anything I can do to help you, please reach out. My contact information's in the Whova thing too, but I'd love to help any of you in any way I can. Thank you very much.